Welcome to the RunDot podcast. When a runner takes on a big-time ultra race, it is common for them to have a support crew go along for the ride. And today we have our coach who's joined us on a number of other RunDot podcasts, and she's going to tell us all about 7 things that she learned from crewing other athletes to the ultra finish line. Our coach is Elizabeth James. She's a professional triathlete. She's a 25-time marathon finisher, and she's been coaching runners and triathletes for over a decade. You don't even look that old, EJ. But EJ, welcome back to the RunDot podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me back. It is just great to be here again.
Well, I can't wait to get into this. But first of all, I'm Carrie Tollefson, Olympian broadcaster and your guide to the world of RunDot. We treat each show like any good workout. We'll start with our warm-up question. We'll settle into our main set conversation, and then we'll wind things down by having Coach Elizabeth answer an audience question on the cool down. Lots of good stuff today, so let's get after it.
This is the RunDot podcast, the running show that brings you world-class coaching with every conversation. Let's get started with today's warm-up.
All right, EJ. So let's start with our warm-up question. And I kind of like this one, but your answer is straightforward, I think. Mine is all over the place. So if you had to do all of your runs in one shoe model for the rest of your life, what shoe would you choose?
Yeah, I saw this question, and this was an easy answer for me because I've been wearing the same shoe model for the past 17 years. So yeah, the Wave Inspire from Mizuno. It is my go-to shoe. It's the shoe that I wore all the time before I realized that there were benefits to like having more than one pair of shoe. But I still have 2 to 3 pairs that work their way through the weekly rotation based on the session. I mean, it's my tried and true. I mean, goodness, we were talking about how long I've been coaching, but this shoe I've worn for almost 2 decades. That makes me feel older. But yeah, I don't see that changing anytime soon. I love it.
Well, I love that you have that one shoe, and a lot of people do. I mean, a lot of people are like, I don't even like it when it changes colors or season to season. They like buy a few and like, they're really stuck with it. But for me, I would. Is that you? Yeah. You have your favorite color. You get a bunch of them.
I love. I've been known to buy 5 pairs. I'm like,
I love it.
Yep, here we go.
Yes.
Build up the cart.
Yeah. Or if it goes on sale, you're like, I'm going to, put a lot. I mean, and two, the other question is how long do you wear a shoe or keep it on the shelf? Like there's all kinds of things. And even though I was a professional runner for so long and I worked in, shoe stores and obviously had to study the shoes when I was competing more so than I do now, I still kind of think like, I don't follow the rules. Like I have shoes on in my basement that are probably like 7 years old that I probably should wear, but I'm not throwing them away and I will wear them someday. So, don't maybe always listen to this gal. But my favorite shoe, if I had to choose one, is the Adidas Adizero Bostons. I really like them. I feel like they're light enough for, speed workouts, even like sprint workouts. And I like going for a long run in them. But I think the way that I've been the last few years, EJ, is I get shoes because I go to different events or whatever. So I get different brands all the time. And my feet actually feel like they like that. They like switching it up. So I haven't just been wearing one pair like I used to for years. Now I wear all of the different things. But lots of love and shout out to the 3 Stripes because they've been so good to me over the years.
Let's go.
Let's get into the main set now because we have lots of fun things to do. And you are fresh off of a trip to the Western States 100-mile endurance run, which was so fun to watch this last weekend. I was kind of following the whole day. It's a long, long race, 2 new course records, like crazy fast stuff. But you're part of a support crew for an athlete. So tell us about your adventures this past weekend.
Yeah. Gosh, it's going to be tough to put into words just how amazing this was. But I think for our audience members, if you think of this like the Super Bowl of ultra running, that helps put it into context a little bit with just how amazing the athletes are that run this race and the hype that surrounds the event. I mean, for me, goodness, I'm hoping that I can still make like coherent sentences because I'm still sleep deprived and just on this major high and adrenaline rush from being there. But yeah, this year I was crewing. I was actually supposed to be pacing like the last 30 miles with my runner, but I'm currently on crutches from an injury.
Yeah.
So yeah, switch from pacer duties to crew duties. But still was, oh my gosh, humbled to be a part of it. And the runner that I was crewing, he's been wanting to do this race for 8 years. So this was a long time coming. I mean, years and years of hard work in the making and just an incredible opportunity for him to be on the starting line. And it was super special because the crew that we had has been with him throughout a number of these events. And so it was kind of like a celebration for all of us. And to get to see him do this after all the events that we've been with him at was just extra special. And then, yeah, I mean, that's just him, but talk about everybody else. I mean, we were quite the fans as well. It's like, who cares if we're getting to the aid stations early and can watch everybody come through. So
Yeah, I mean,
just
big
amazing.
names at
Amazing.
this race, and a lot of people were, tuning in, but so cool that you really had like a personal investment there too. Like you have been training, like you said, with your friend that race. Like, let's talk about how this has become part of your training as well. I mean, it's yes, his race, but you have to train for this. You have to be ready for it. So talk about how it's been part of your running journey. And also, do you have other ultra events that you've been at, or is the Western States your first crewing
Yeah,
experience?
yeah. So the guy that was running, his name is Mark, and he is a wonderful training partner for me. When I first moved to Texas, I got to know Mark as the run club lead at our gym. And at the time, I mean, he was kind of like the epitome of like the ultra guy. He'd been to Boston, he'd been to Kona. He was somebody that I just looked up to a lot in terms of his training advice. And through the run club, we got to be just very frequent training partners. I mean, you spend a number of hours together as you're training for different events. We also have a very similar personality and just get along super well. And so, being in the same proximity, hours and hours of running together, we just got to be really good friends. And oh gosh, it was probably about 7 years ago now. Mark was really moving from Ironman racing into the ultra scene, and he had asked me to pace him at the Leadville 100. And I mean, the way that he put it, he's like, "Hey, would you do the last like 40 miles with me at Leadville?" And I was like, "What the heck? Like, I've done marathons, yeah, and like I know I do Ironmans, but 40 miles on my feet." I was like, "I don't know if I'm ready for that."
Yeah,
And
and at 10,000 feet, by the way, just like, or
right, exactly.
14,000,
And
whatever
at
it is.
altitude, and we're gonna climb, and like,
Yeah,
let's see how your quads do on the downhills.
right.
But gosh, like he was just so confident that all of my Ironman training would carry over well. And he's like, I just think that it'll be a good thing. We'll work it in with your triathlon training, and it'll just be, like a long Saturday. You're used to
Yeah.
those anyway. And I was like, "Okay, Mark, like let's see how this goes." He was right, as he usually is. It went so well, and I had
Cool.
so much fun supporting him in that event. And from there, I think it went well for me. It went well for
Mhm.
him. And so we just kind of kept it going. I've actually done a number of ultras with him since. I've lost count of how many like I've done with him because he's done even so many more. Because he's really good about fitting it in with my racing schedule. And so there's some that I missed, some that he's like,
Mhm.
"Hey, what you doing this weekend?" I was like, "Oh, that's like a weekend before I'm racing. I
Yeah.
don't think that's a good idea." Um, but yeah, I've been able to pace at like another Leadville. I did Badwater 135 with him,
Okay.
the Fat Dog 120 up in Canada. Super awesome, super hard. Keys 100 down in Florida, Burning River, the Mahoyan Monster, and then yeah, coming off the weekend at Western States. So I've
My
done a
gosh.
number of like those big ones with them, which has been super, super cool.
That is cool. I mean, I wonder how he plans his life. Like, because I keep thinking of you as you're talking, and I know you do this too. I'm like, how do you do that? Like, this is a huge undertaking, and then it's not just him. It's how many people are on your crew?
So we usually have him and then 4 to 5 others.
Yeah, it's a big production.
It is, yes, it really
Oh my
is.
goodness. Okay. Well, we're going to get into the learnings. We want to learn 7 different things about crewing. So, We are first going to start with learning number one, and that is know the course better than you think you need to. So we're just going to dive right in here and learn all the things of in the mind of an actual crew. And you've all also done some of these ultra races yourself, so you've had crew members too. But let's start off as a crew member. Know the course better than you think you need to. Talk about that.
Yes. So, especially with these, I mean, long distance ultra events,
Mhm.
they, span a great number of miles. And you need to know not only like how many miles it is between different crew points and when you might be able to see your runner, but also what the terrain is like in between those points too. And I mean, for example, Mark is just an excellent climber. I mean, on these
Okay.
mountain races, he can climb super well. He's actually a better climber than he is descending, especially if something is loose rocks. And so we always need to plan for like not only how many miles are between the aid stations, but then what type of terrain it is and how his pacing might be affected by that terrain. Um, what's interesting too is that when the runner is going, 5 miles between aid stations, that's not necessarily how long the car needs to travel to get from one place to the other because the car isn't going on, those trails that the runner is following. There have been so many times where we have to pick and choose which aid stations we can go and support Mark at because he's going to make it to the next aid station before we can logistically drive around the mountain and access specific roads to get there. And so there's a lot of math involved, which, to be honest, as a former math teacher, I kind of love. And when I was still teaching and like my students would be like, why do we need to know this? I'd pull out my whole like, well, this weekend I'm pacing my friend Mark and we have to use math to figure out how fast he's going and how many miles this is. And so like I
Uh-huh.
could easily whip that out and be like, math's important. Like, do your
That's
homework.
great. Yeah.
But yeah, it's super interesting to plan out the whole race, know not only how far the aid stations are and where you can crew, but then which roads are open and what type of terrain you're going to be driving on. This was a hard lesson for me. The very first year that I paced at Leadville, I mentioned I did the last 40 miles. Well, my husband actually did the first 10 where you could pace, and that was
Okay.
up and over Hope Pass. Now, you don't get a pacer there anymore, and it's probably because the road is so terrible and inaccessible. When I was driving out on this Jeep road, we didn't have like the insight yet in terms of all of this know the course stuff. So I had a tiny little four-door car, rental car, and I was absolutely terrified that I was not going to make it back to my pacing duty spot because going on the Jeep road to drop my husband off, going back, I mean, I'm hitting potholes like crazy. It's like halfway, like side of the road. I was like, I'm not going to make it back. This is terrible. And if I break down, no cell phone signal, like,
Yep.
so that was a quick learning right away. Like, four-wheel drive is helpful. Satellite phones are a great investment
Mhm.
for your crew as well because you're up there and you don't know what it's going to be. Um, so yeah, like there's there's a lot of detail
Mhm.
and knowing where to be when. There are some spots along the course where you're not allowed to crew, and if you do interact with your runner, you actually get them disqualified. And so you have to really know the course, know the terrain, know what roads you're going to be on, what the runner's going to be on. And the planning part of this, I mean, takes weeks. We'll sit down with course maps, with topography charts, with road
Wow.
closures, and it's a big project. I love it; it's fun, but the time investment that goes in ahead of time
Sure.
is crucial. And on
Yep.
race day, like your runner your runner shouldn't be worried about all of that. Like you sit down and you plan with your runner ahead of time, but on race day, all they need to think about is moving forward and getting to the next aid station.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
don't care and they don't need to know that it's going to take you 4 hours to drive around the mountain to see them, 20 miles later.
Yep.
They're just hoping you're there. And so you got to figure out how to make it happen.
We had my kids and I were Charlie, my husband's crew at Leadville for the mountain bike race. And I think
Yep.
we didn't do any of this. We were like calling him on his cell phone. You couldn't answer because nothing was coming through. And we were just like, where's dad? And after we got through the first time, like then we were better the second time he went out there. But oh my gosh,
Mhm.
we were the worst. So I'm
Well, it
learning
sounds like
from you
my
as we
first
go.
time out at Leadville too. I was like, "Sure, like, I'll go pace you, no problem." Like, "Oh, like,
Yeah.
we gotta do a little recon or, like, a lot of recon."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I can see where the teacher comes in right here, and you really kind of
Yes.
plan and have your programs or whatever, what's the word that you guys do as teachers? You have your plans. Your
Yeah, like the
plans for
lesson
the
plan. Yep.
your lesson plans. There it is. Okay,
Uh-huh.
learning number 2. Let's go into that. Pack for every version of the day. I like this one.
Yes. This to me, like, we did a good job of this from the beginning, but, the more and more races that I've done with Mark, it just hammers this one home because as a runner is out there for, 24, maybe 30 hours, the weather is gonna change, and especially if it's a race that has changing terrain. So for example, Leadville, like the weather at mile 60 might be nothing like what they're going to experience at mile 80 or 90. It was the second year that I was pacing Mark at Leadville, and it was snowing on top of the mountain
Mm.
passes. So there we are in August, like coming from, August in Texas, you're not really thinking like, oh, I should probably pack like a winter coat and hat and some gloves. Thankfully we did, but like we're on top of the mountain pass and we are putting on a coat, long pants, like gloves with hot hands in them, a winter hat, and, going through the snow. And then as we're descending down the mountain, coming back toward Leadville, it's 60 degrees. And so then we're packing everything back up. We're back in shorts and singlets. And so, yeah, you've got to pack for a wide variety of weather and understand how that's going to change with the terrain. There's different situations like this, like for Keys 100 and Badwater 135. Those are open, exposed, and major sunburn possibilities. So our full crew would have sun shirts to wear throughout the daytime hours. During the night when it's not sunny, like you could go down to a singlet, but anytime the sun was out, we needed full like sun protection. And so a sun shirt, like a hat with a flap down the back or like a big bucket hat was necessary. And you're just making sure that you take all of those things into consideration because if you're, climbing and we did this, we were climbing, it was a huge rainstorm and you can't afford for the pacer or the runner to get too cold and risk hypothermia. And you have to be aware of those things, whether it's super hot or super cold or being able to change back and forth in between. So you do need to look at the possibilities for that. This year at Western States, it was one of the coldest years that they had. Typically this is super hot and you see a lot of people struggling with heat exhaustion, heat related illness. In the morning, everybody was like in a jacket. And, some people had gloves and hats. And that first climb up to Immigrant Pass, you're 5 a.m. and it's cold. And it was in the high 30s when they started.
Wow.
That's not
Wow.
typical. And so you've got to be ready for all those different scenarios and pack more than you would think you would need.
Yeah.
It's so interesting too with, not only packing for the different weather changes, but there's a lot of ultras that have required gear lists that either the runner needs to be carrying with them or that the crew has to have. And so, for example, Keys 100, like the runner has to have specific things on them, but then your crew van is also required to carry a specific amount of liquid hydration at any point. And the
Okay.
race organizers can stop your van, do a check, and if you don't have that, then your runner is disqualified
Huh.
because it's just a safety concern. And so you have to make sure that you have, a crew vehicle that can accommodate all of those possibilities and then equip your runner with what they're going to need. Honestly, this is another thing where I just love, I like get into the details of it because your crew vehicle is a rolling like supply store. And so it's so neat to see how everybody has this organized. I mean, most everyone's got like a big cooler. You've got some bins for the gear. But then, I mean, some crews are fully decked out with like plastic drawers that are labeled for like, shoes for aid station 1, shoes for, so if a runner's switching
Yeah.
shoes or socks. Then they've got like tackle boxes that are all the different like blister care possibilities or,
Mhm.
Band-Aids and, things if there's a more serious injury. So there's a lot of things that are necessary to have, but then your crew van also needs to be equipped with like, what if something goes wrong and do we have those things to help our runner in an appropriate
Mm.
way?
I
So
wonder if people like that are as organized as you've been talking, like, do they get that all when they, if it's a destination type run where they're not right in their home city or home state where they drive all that to, or do most people drive all of that, out to an event? How I suppose you get both.
right, you do get both. I mean, you have the runners that have like their big sprinter vans
Yeah.
and they've got everything in there and it probably doesn't move much throughout the season. But then you have other people that are flying to those destinations. Gosh, Mark's wife and I have made numerous Walmart runs to buy some of these things. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
what can we bring? And then
Right.
what's our Walmart list for when we get there? And like, how many bins and plastic drawers do we need and band-aids and stuff so that we're eliminating all of that to fly on the plane.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's, I mean, a whole nother, piece of the puzzle of are you flying? Are you driving? How much
Yeah.
can you take with you? What do you need when you get there? And yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I'm sure they get a lot of donations to those cities like Leadville after all of
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Because you're not going to take that all with you on the plane. So the
No,
runners
you
that
can't.
drive get a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
extra supplies, or the race organizer does too.
for sure. Okay, learning number 3. Your runner needs calories and specificity, not cheerleading. So let's hear that. I like that. We want to know. I mean, you see the athletes and you see how focused they are. Some need, people right in their face, like you got this. Some just need like, what can we do with you? What do you need us to do? Like it's a fine line of how you pump your athlete up and support them.
Yes, yeah, it really is. And the way that I thought of this is like generic encouragement is less useful to a runner kind of the further they're getting into that than like specific things. Now, certainly, there's a time and a place for you to be encouraging. And I'm not saying like, don't pump them up. But, if you just say like, you've got this at mile 70, they're thinking, I've still got like 30 miles to
Yeah.
go if they're in
Hmm.
100. Like, that doesn't sound that great. It's kind of like the person that's like, oh, you're almost there at mile 2 of the marathon. You're like,
Yeah.
no, not even close. Like, we
Right.
got a long day ahead of us. Um, and this is something that just kind of has evolved the more that I've actually been pacing more than anything. So when I'm with Mark, this goes back to knowing the course. It's like telling him, okay, we have 5.5 miles until the next aid station. This
Hmm.
climb is going to be 1.2 miles long. Like we're going to, climb 500 feet. And
Okay.
so giving him something very specific to focus on.
Yeah.
Or, hey, we really need to hit this mile under like a 13-minute pace while we're
Uh-huh.
climbing. Like we got to go. Or for him, I mean, one of the things that's most challenging is descending on loose rock. And so it's like, hey, this area does have some loose rock. Like we're probably going to take this mile slower, and that's okay because we've got, 2 miles up ahead where it's on a paved road. We're connecting between trails. So don't worry about the time loss here. And so very specific things like that are helpful
Hmm.
for him to kind of understand how things are flowing together. And of
Yeah.
course, he's looked at the course, but by mile 70, he can't remember which part is
Right.
what. And I mean, he's just like, okay, I need to make sure that I stay upright and keep eating. Um,
Yeah.
so it's really important to know those specific things to give the runner. And then kind of same thing when Mark was coming into the cruise stations this last weekend at Western States. I mean, we were all super excited to see him and we're like, oh my gosh, he's doing great. And that's good. But we need to ask some critical questions in those couple minutes that we have with him. It's like, when did you last eat? Like, how many ounces have you had since the last aid station? Like, let's see the bottles that you had. We're calculating, like, okay, that was great. You drank enough. Here's your new bottle. Like, this needs to be gone by the time you see us again.
Mm-hmm.
Or if he hasn't had enough, then, I mean, we may have him take more at that crew station before we even send him off again.
Okay.
And I mean, that's often what it is. It's like, okay, here's your bottle. You drink this and then you're allowed to leave us. Like,
Uh-huh.
you got to stay on top of that. And so
That's
that's much more
interesting.
helpful for him continuing on with the day than us to say, like, oh, good job. Like, yay. Woohoo. It's
Yeah.
like, no, what do you need? When did you last eat? Do you have any
Yeah.
spots that are chafing? You know, okay, you don't have any sunscreen on yet, so close your eyes. We're spraying you down.
Right.
Like, here's
Right.
some chapstick. And so yeah, just having everything ready, and it's like a NASCAR pit crew.
Mhm.
No, because I was on crutches this last time, there were a couple aid stations where I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna be in charge of getting some photo and video for this one. And it was so fascinating for me to see our crew just quickly work. I mean, really, like, Mark came in and basically it was like old bottles out, new bottles in, chapstick on, spray them with sunscreen, like, drink this, eat that, like, are your shoes good? All right, no shoe change and go. And it's like less than 2 minutes and he's got a full, like, swap of gear,
Yeah.
like, nutrition, and then he's off again.
That's
And
wild.
it really reminds me of NASCAR. So,
Do you
be a
go back
NASCAR pit crew,
after?
not the cheerleader. What's
Yeah,
that?
yeah, right. Do you go back after and ever see how long those transitions are?
Yes.
Like, you know how
Yeah.
in I mean, triathlon, that's a big thing, right? Is you try to see how much you can, taper that down a little bit. Is it the same for ultra?
Yes, but it does depend on how the runner is doing and kind of what their goal is too. And so if things are going really well and we're able to make that like a NASCAR pit crew and quick off and go, fantastic. If there's an issue where like he's starting to get a really bad hot spot on his foot, like we will take additional
Take the
time and it's
time.
like, all
Yeah.
right, sit down, shoes off, socks off, like here's
Yeah.
new socks, here's new shoes. And so there are some of those decisions to be made at the crew stations of like,
Mm,
what can we do now that's going to help him in the next 10 miles? And if it can be quick, fantastic. But if we need to take a little more time at one of those crew stops to make sure that something doesn't become a bigger issue later, like if we notice, why are your bottles still full? Like,
mhm.
then it might be something where we need to evaluate how he's doing,
Yeah.
what has been your intake, and take a little longer at that stop. Some races, it's super cool. They have timing mats at the beginning and the end of aid stations. And so you
Cool.
can actually see what that time is. So, like, all right, they're coming in to, I mean, they didn't have that this weekend, but like coming into Forest Hill, leaving Forest Hill, like what was that time gap? Other times, like we'll put a timer on it and just kind of gauge that because then that also helps us in our planning for his pacing and when to be at the next one
Mhm.
because we have to factor in how long he was stopped as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh.
again, lots of math. The math teacher in me loves this. It's like we have all of these things we need to calculate.
I know. I know. It's not just left, right, left, right. There's a lot that goes into this. Okay. Learning number
Yes.
4. I'm interested in this one. Learn to read the difference between hard and wrong. So, what does this mean?
Yes. I mean, the truth is that every ultra runner is going to look terrible at some point. I mean, it sounds bad, but honestly, it's normal. They're going for anywhere from like 13 to 30 hours, depending on the course, depending on how fast they're going. It's a full day, if not more than an entire day. So for them to have some low points and to look like they're just fatigued or wiped out is completely expected on a race like this. But what we really need to look for as the crew or as the pacer that's with them is for warning signs that go beyond just like fatigue and a little suffering that we know is
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah.
So things like being really confused, not knowing where they are, not knowing what they're doing, the inability to hold down any food or any water that they just can't keep anything in their body. Like really unusual gait changes if, slow and moving forward is fine, but if they're starting to swerve or not be able to hold themselves upright, that's worrisome. And then that kind of just like absent or glazed effect again, where they're not really present. Those are all things that go beyond just that usual fatigue. And for me, this came up that very first time I paced in Leadville. And I typically do the overnight sections with Mark, and he was really, really struggling to stay awake, even as he was walking. He was falling asleep as he was moving forward on the trail. And I had never experienced anything like that before. I mean, first time that I'm out there doing anything like this, and I'm thinking like, all right, cool, like a little walk in the woods. And I'm like, crap. Like, he is falling asleep. I see nobody around. It's dark. All I see
Yeah,
are like eyes in the woods. And I'm like, if he falls asleep, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I'm like, that was the big realization for me of like, I need to understand what to do in situations like this and how to handle them. Now, on that one, thankfully, we were less than a mile from an aid station. And so I was like, Mark, you gotta stay awake. I mean, kind of like tapping his face. I'm like, come on, buddy. Like, we're gonna
yeah.
make it to the aid station. We're gonna get in some more calories, get in some caffeine. His wife was there, which was super reassuring to me. So I could be like, here's the situation. Like, what do
Here
I
he
do? Are we
is.
good? Yeah,
Take him.
like,
No, just kidding.
help.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was like eye-opening for me in terms of like, I need to understand what some of these warning signs are and how to handle them so that I can make sure that he's safe. Like, pacing sounds fun and great, and it
sure.
is until you're in a situation like that where you're really concerned about the safety of the person that you're with and needing to make critical decisions like that.
Mm,
I mean, honestly, pacing is one of the reasons that I renew my first aid and my CPR every time it comes up. I do a lot of remote coaching, so I'm not with a lot of my like coached athletes on a daily basis. But I mean, my training partners, when I'm out there pacing or crewing, I feel a responsibility to know how to handle situations like
so
that.
good. Yeah.
It's super cool. There's actually now some courses that are designated for crew members and pacers for ultras, where you can go and basically get certifications in terms of like wilderness first aid and warning signs for runners and what do you do if X, Y, and Z happens and how do you mitigate some of these issues. So I've looked into that. I've done a lot of like research and some like reading. There's a couple books that other crew members and pacers have written. Those have been
Hmm.
great resources, but that's kind of next on my list to actually go and do the certification just so that I know that difference between what is hard for him and what
Yeah.
is a safety concern.
That's
Because
such a
you
great
are
point.
expected to know the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant. And I mean, even in the running world right now, they run a track, but the great Jenny Simpson, who,
Yes. Yeah.
she's an Olympic medalist, a world champion. Like she had a heart event at an event, and thank goodness so many athletes knew how to, aid to her, get to her aid right away and use an AED, and the ambulance came. But I mean, we all need to have that. So I'm thankful that you said that. CPR was one thing, but even just general aid is so important. So first aid is so important.
Mhm.
Learning number 5. Let's keep going because we have a
Yes.
couple more really good ones after this. Silence is a legitimate form of support. I really think this is important. And this is not only important just in ultra running. I think it can be across all sports, maybe all things of life too. It just
Yes.
sometimes you got to pick your words wisely.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And no words is just fine. I mean, not every moment needs words, and sometimes the
Yeah,
best thing is just having somebody else there. I love how you said, this crosses over into just life as well.
right.
Like sometimes you don't even need anybody to say something. You just need them to sit there with
Be
you.
there. Yep.
And I find that this has been a key part of when I've been pacing. I was fortunate enough to pace Mark for the last 50 miles of his Burning River race. And I can guarantee you, we did not talk for 50
I know,
miles.
you
Like,
often wonder, like, do they talk the whole time? Like, what do they say? Like,
yeah,
telling
that's
jokes,
like,
telling stories?
what would we talk about? Now, I
Right.
will say, we will often try to not talk for like 3 weeks going into a race. So we have all these stories built up.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but you're still gonna run out of things to say. Or
Sure.
even if you don't, sometimes there's just moments where you don't need to say anything.
Yes.
And that was the case here in this race. He just needed, the company.
Yep.
And we'd say things here once in a while. Honestly, a lot of Burning River was just making sure that we were on course. And so as we'd see the markers, I'd be like, course marker up ahead.
Yeah.
It'd probably be silent for another 15 minutes until it's like course marker right there. Okay,
Right.
we're on track. And, just enough to know that he's awake, coherent. He would respond like, "Yep, see it. Yep, got it." But you don't need to be talking the whole time. It also depends on like how hard everybody's working. I mean, there are sections where Mark's running fast and I'm running fast and we don't need to be, using extra energy to talk. It's like we just got to go.
Focus.
And
Yep.
so, pointing things out, nodding, just course markers, that's a great thing to do. Um, One of the things that I found super interesting is that in reading a couple of these books about crew members and pacers, they said, don't project your anxiety onto your runner. I mean, you are worried about them, you are wanting them to do well, but you don't need to put some of that thought in their head either. Like, you don't want to say, "You seem really tired. Are you sure you're okay to keep going?" Like, that's not helpful for them. And so, in that case, it's probably much better to keep that thought to yourself, keep your mouth shut, and just know, like, they look really tired. I wonder how I can support them in this moment. And just being that calm and confident presence is much more helpful than being a chatterbox or being like, "Oh,
Sure.
like, you're really tired," or like, "Oh, you tripped on another route, like,
Oh,
maybe we should take a little longer at the next aid station, pick up your feet." Like,
right.
sometimes, you just be quiet. Like, they know what's going on too. They know it's hard. They know that they're, in a little bit of a little hurt locker. But having somebody there to do it with them is really meaningful.
And I think that leads into learning number 6, which is have a plan for the hard conversation. I mean, there are times where you're going to have to talk them off of that cliff, right? You're going to have to walk them through certain times that are really tough, get them through those moments where they're sleeping while they're walking. I mean, all those things. So let's hear what
Mhm.
your plan is for those hard conversations.
Yeah. I think the best advice I can give for this is like talking it out with everybody that's involved with the race ahead of time and really having the runner lead this conversation of like, here's what would be helpful for me when it gets hard, because it will. And then really knowing, what they have as kind of their line that's drawn of like, when this is no longer safe. I'm very fortunate that a lot of the races that I've been with Mark at, like his wife is also there. And so she kind of has like that ultimate decision power. If
Okay.
she sees him and is like, this is this is not okay. Like I
Right.
need to pull him.
Hmm.
And so I mean I feel a little bit of a relief there because
For
ultimately like
sure.
you know, Mark has a decision of if he's going to keep going. If things are not going well, I can lean on his wife and say, like, here are the things that I'm seeing. Here are my concerns. Like, are you okay with him continuing or do we need to call something? Um, I mean, thankfully, we have not been in that situation, but
Good.
it's something that we do discuss before
Hmm.
every race because ultimately, like, one race is not worth his safety and him being able to continue to do this for years and years to come. And
Mm,
so knowing in advance like what the runner is comfortable with in terms of pushing, what their family's comfortable with in terms of what that line is, and then what to do if we do have concerns beyond that is important. Because yeah, I mean there will be hard moments in the course, but it kind of goes back to like what's hard and what's wrong. Like when we cross that line of wrong, like what is our action plan to make sure that ultimately like he's safe? If that's we need to pull him off the course, we need to contact his wife, we need to make those tough decisions. And I think that, the best crews out there do always have the runner's safety in mind. And that trust is earned well before race day. I mean, oftentimes, the crews and the pacers that are there, they know these people well. They're very much invested in their health and safety, and so they want to see them be successful. And whether that's successful crossing the finish line that day, or it's, hey, we need to look at the bigger picture here and call this one quits and be successful for the long term with your health and safety and come back another time. But yeah, it's not a fun thing to think about, but you want to have a plan for that before it's mile 85 in the pitch black and you're like,
Yeah.
crap, what do we do? Because
Yep.
we're in trouble now.
Yeah, you never wanna go into a race having to think about, "What if I have to drop out?" Right? You don't wanna think about that. But in these
Mhm.
long, kind of extreme situations, you have to have that plan. And obviously, you all are so good and you know your athletes so well to read their physical signs, hear what they're communicating back to you, and maybe what they aren't communicating back to you. I think that
Mhm.
that's so smart too. And sounds like, he's got a really good eye on who he has with him at
Yes.
these races. He has to be very comfortable with you all. I like this last one, learning 7. Take care of yourself so you can take care of them, of the athlete that you're crewing for. So how do you do that?
Yes. I mean, this is, oh gosh, what's that cliche? Like you can't pour from an empty cup. I
Yeah.
think this one really applies here because there's no way that you can take care of the runner if you are in a bad state. Now,
Yeah, we do
I mean,
not
I'll
want them
admit,
having to take care of you. Like, that is
right,
not the
exactly.
point.
Yeah, that's not how this is supposed to work.
No.
Um, and I mean, I'll admit, like, crewing and pacing is tough. Like,
Yeah.
I'm still exhausted from Western States this last weekend. I mean, we had terrible travel getting there too, and so we didn't get
Okay.
in until, like, gosh, it was, like, 2 a.m. California time. So it would have been, like, 3 a.m. time in Texas the day before, and then we're checking in and everything. I mean,
Getting
we
everything
we get about,
ready,
like,
yeah.
3 or 4 hours of sleep going into race day, and then we're pulling an all-nighter, and so it's like, "Oh, man, like, I've gotten less sleep, like, in 3 days than I usually would in 1 night." Like,
Right.
that's tough. So crew fatigue, pacing fatigue, like, that's real,
Yeah.
especially in these long day events, and so, I mean, the crew really needs to, like, get along and be
Mm,
there to support one another,
mhm.
eat as like, when you can, like, sleep in shifts, stay
Yep.
hydrated. Like, part of the crew van and the crew materials need to be enough to take care of the people that are taking care of the runner as well.
Sure.
When I'm pacing, I often don't go to the start. And Mark is so great about this. Because I'm usually like one of the later pacers, or I mean, in some events, I'm the only pacer. If he can have a pacer for the last 40 miles or last 50 miles, oftentimes I will do that, and the rest of the crew is there to kind of support him as the runner and support me as the pacer. I won't go to the start, and
Okay.
so some of the crew members will take him for the early morning start. I'll stay at the Airbnb and I'll sleep, and I'll be there. I'll eat my own breakfast, go for a short walk, do some mobility work in the morning, and really get ready for kind of my my run.
Sure.
Um, on Mark's crew, we usually have one person that's designated to take care of the pacer or the pacers as well. And so when we're
Okay.
coming into aid stations, we have somebody that's really focused in on Mark, what do you need? Let's make sure that he's ready, that NASCAR pit crew. But we also have somebody that's designated to take care of me. And oftentimes my husband is part of the crew as well. And so that gets to be his job. Like
Nice.
he's the one taking care of me. Mark's wife is taking care of him. The other crew members, helping with Mark. And so my husband's making sure that I'm good to go for, the next 10, 20 miles as well. Because if I'm in a world of hurt, then
Mm,
I'm not going to be helpful to Mark.
yeah.
And so it's really important that you have a crew that gets along well, that understands each other, that can work through difficulties when everybody is sleep deprived and hungry.
Have those
And
hard
problem
conversations with
Yeah,
everyone.
yes, exactly. So it's it's such an amazing experience, but it is draining.
Sure.
And I think, that's one of the things that I've realized more and more is just how fortunate we are to have a well-working crew
Yeah.
that gets along, that really is looking out for each other. I mean, we'll take turns napping in the back of the car, and somebody will go get food, making sure that everybody else is ready to go. If somebody can stay at the house for a section and rest because they're needing them for the next few aid stations, we really prioritize that. So, yeah,
Sounds
you
so
have to
fun.
take care of yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's fun, but it's a lot, and it's a lot of planning. And I can remember, watching Charlie. He hasn't done an Ironman now in a couple years, but even just standing there watching him, not crewing, even just being that support on the side, and your head is going like this, watching for him, for like 12,
Right.
13
Yeah.
hours, whatever. I can't remember what his best is, but I mean, and then you miss them. If you miss them, which you won't do so much, you have a number of people watching for your one athlete. But when you are kind of on your own watching, it's a lot on the support crew. I got caught once, EJ, I had like a video camera. We'd have our phones and I had a video camera and I got caught complaining about my aching legs because I'd been standing for like 8 hours, or whatever. So, maybe don't do that in front of your athlete. Don't complain about how hard it is to watch them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I
Well, and I
gotta,
had to catch myself a little bit this last time because
did
as I
you?
mentioned, for this one, I was on crutches.
Yeah,
And so, I mean, my hands were so blistered. I did not expect that. I mean, I haven't been on crutches since high school. And so
right?
here I am, like, on crutches, getting to the aid stations. I'm gonna make it happen, gonna make it work.
Yes,
But I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, my hands are so blistered," but I'm not gonna say a darn thing because Mark's feet are full of blisters, and he's got, 20
right?
more miles to go.
Yeah.
So, yep, you just zip it and
Zip it.
do the best you
Yep.
can.
Just bite your tongue. Um,
Yes.
I know that you're injured right now, which I'm sorry about, but I also feel like a lot of times when we have those big injuries, we're better athletes for it. So I hope that
Mhm.
you come out on the other side even stronger. But do you have an ultra on your mind? Do you want to do any races coming up?
Gosh, yes. I mean, the only ultras that I technically have to my name are I did a 50K out in Fort Worth, like one of the first years we moved to Texas, and then pacing Mark on the back half of the 50 for
Yeah.
Burning River technically counts. It's
Oh,
actually
cool.
how he got me to pace him that long. I don't think I would have agreed to 50 miles anyway, but he's like, "Oh, surprise, like, the pacers for the back half 50 actually get this counted as a race, so I signed you
My
up for the back
gosh.
half 50." And I was like, "Oh my god, that was sneaky. Because now that I'm
Here we
signed up for the
go.
race, I'm gonna do it."
Ah,
Yeah, super cool. So I technically have those 2, but, oh yeah, the hundreds, I have had my eye on that for the last few years. I feel like, I'm, like, invested in triathlon, but I've got this wandering eye over here to ultras, and I just need to kinda make that decision of, like, when I'm gonna swap the TT bike for more miles, like, in the
okay.
dirt. I mean, I love gravel biking, I love trail running. I really see that as a shift for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm just not sure when, 'cause I love all of it. Like, I'm not quite ready to fully give all my time to the dirt.
Yeah,
Still love doing triathlon, but I'm invested enough to do some gravel bike races and continue pacing Mark. I think it's great learning. I feel like I will be so much better equipped when I do take that jump into the ultra scene with
for
all
sure.
of the experience I have with him.
Well, that's so exciting, and he is so lucky to have you. I could just see, and your husband and the rest of his crew, I can just see how much fun he has knowing that he can do his race, but he has great people in his corner. So, bravo. Congratulations on an awesome weekend for you all. The last thing that we have today is our cool down. So, we're going to do our cool down, which is a question from the audience. And Mindy wrote from Oklahoma. She asked, I'm mostly a road runner and do all the local road 5Ks and 10Ks. I get invites to weekend group trails most weekends, but to weekend group trail runs, rather, most weekends. She wants to know what's the best way to balance an unstructured group trail run with her RunDot training?
Ah, yes. Great question here, Mindy. Love this question. It's something that I have had to balance as well with trying to figure out, when I'm going to be on trails, how can I fit that in? Because I love it. But yeah, you look at RunDot and it doesn't say like go for a trail run today. So how do we fit that in? I personally found that like the trail runs I would go and do as more of a social event made for great aerobic sessions. And so I would often swap out like a zone 2 day for some fun on the trails. Now, depending on the terrain and who you go with, I mean, you might be able to swap out a higher intensity day. Like if they're really pushing the pace and your, heart rate is way up in zone 4, like, okay, that wasn't an aerobic day for you. Like we maybe need to swap out a different session. But I often let heart rate be my guide on the trails. And so if I'm doing an aerobic session, if I'm trying to stay in zone 2, like I just look at zone 2. And it's going to, fluctuate a little bit with the terrain, but you can keep a nice, easy effort. And that's a great session to swap out. I mean, it's social, it's fun, something different. I mean, there's an added benefit of like working all those little stabilizer muscles on the uneven surfaces that you don't often get running on the pavement. So I found that to be honestly like a little bit of some strength work too. Expect some soreness the first few times out there, but enjoy. And I would say, after the first couple times going out with the group, do take a look back at the file. See, was this an aerobic day for me? Was this higher intensity? And then that will help you dictate maybe where that fits in and what session is most appropriate to swap it out with. And from there, it's really just gauging risk versus reward. As I would get closer and closer to like my A races for the year, I wouldn't go out on the trails because the likelihood of me like tripping and falling or stubbing a toe, rolling an ankle would be more likely. But it was a risk I was willing to take, 8 weeks out, 6 weeks out from an event to have that social time. So definitely there's a time and a place to put it in. And I would say just kind of look at your heart rate on those first couple times you go out, see what you can swap it out with, and then enjoy.
I love that. You hit it all. I mean, I think the thing is RunDot wants you to still have fun. So if that's your fun, go hit the trails.
Yes.
It's all good.
Thanks for listening to the RunDot podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on your listening platform of choice. For more opportunities to learn from our coaches, check out our YouTube channel and follow RunDot Training on social. Ready to train with us? Head to rundot.com and get started for free. Until next time, happy training.